The Green Lantern movie has a pretty bad reputation. I know I've had some mean things to say about it, but it's not bad, not in the top 5 worst superhero movies or anything like that. I think what grinds my gears, and I'm assuming the gears of many other people, is that this movie has a lot of potential and got quite a bit right, but the things it gets wrong are really perplexing. The problems I have with it shouldn't have made it past the first draft in the script. Someone should have looked at this and told the people in charge, alright, this is pretty good, but what the heck is up with this 20% of the movie that could have easily been improved in 15 minutes in the writing room. And it makes sense because 2 of the 4 screenwriters are Greg Berlanti and Mark Guggenheim, who got the Arrowverse off the ground, and that whole universe is famous for taking a character and getting it nearly right, but getting some aspects frustratingly wrong in how easy they could have been avoided. You know, same problem this movie has. Seriously, 4 screenwriters? That's never a good sign. It took 4 of you guys to get this to me, but I just ordered a burger. This shouldn't have been that difficult, so I'm guessing you guys messed it up, and you all probably thought someone else cooked it, so nobody did. Now, there was also apparently some studio interference, and if this statement is to be believed, it solves at least one problem I had with this movie, but I'm not sure if everything can be attributed to studio interference. I talk a big talk about how easy this movie could have been to fix, so I guess I should put my money where my mouth is, huh? The basic plot is that this big ancient evil alien escapes from the worst guarded prison in the universe with a total of 0 guards, and it gets a space cop killed. The space cop gives his weapon to an Earth pilot named Hal Jordan, and then he eventually stops the evil alien. On paper, that doesn't sound too bad, but when you get to the nuts and bolts of it, it starts to look a little sweaty. You've got Parallax as the big threat of the movie, but he is like Space Satan, and while I don't read a whole lot of Green Lantern, he seems like the kind of guy that you would need the entire Corps to defeat. So don't start your Green Lantern movie franchise with him. You want your first movie to be Hal's victory, not him teaming up with a bunch of more seasoned Lanterns, which I'm pretty sure is why Kilowog, Sinestro, and Tomar-Ray don't help Hal at all in the climax of this movie. But it does make them look like really horrible people when Hal asks for help and they show up after he's defeated the monster. So instead of introducing Parallax and then having Hector Hammond as the bad guy for about 10 minutes and then getting rid of him just as soon as he showed up and having Parallax show up on Earth even though Sinestro said that he was heading to Oa, this movie should have been split up into a trilogy. First movie, Abin Sur is killed by some alien with an evil virus, but not Parallax. I don't know my Green Lantern lore very well, so I just looked up Green Lantern alien virus and found this guy named Despotolus, who is an alien virus. Do the same thing this movie did. Have Despotolus be the alien that Abin Sur is tracking, and then he gets a fatal wound, he crashes to Earth, then the first hour and a half of this movie more or less happens the way that it did, with Hector Hammond being called in by a scientist woman to do the autopsy on Abin Sur. It really makes very little sense that Amanda Waller is working in the alien autopsy division of the government. I don't think she's even a scientist in the comics, though I could be wrong. But since they said this movie was supposed to kick off a DC movieverse, this feels like they were just setting her up to be in other movies later on, since this role could have been anybody. They could have gotten someone like Kimio Hoshi, and then maybe she gets her weird light powers from something connected to the Corps in a later movie. This still allows you to do your setup stuff, but since Dr. Light 2 actually is a scientist, and I couldn't tell you what her area of expertise even is, I don't think anyone would have questioned it if they put her in this role. So Hammond will get infected with Despotolus, and it transforms him into the big threat of the movie. And Hector can even call on the memories of Despotolus to taunt Hal in the final act, and talk about how he won't be the first Lantern that he's killed, because he's kind of becoming one with Despotolus. Also, while we're camped out in movie 1, we will be removing/streamlining a few of our non-Hal Jordan characters. There's a period of 5 minutes in the movie where Hal gets 3 separate mentors, 2 of whom tell him that he's worthless. Tomar-Ray, Kilowog, and Sinestro should have been combined into one guy giving Hal the tour and teaching him the ropes with the ring. And the movie needs to decide if it's going to open with your Lord of the Rings-esque exposition narration, or if the ring is going to give Hal exposition throughout the movie, or if the Mentor Lantern is going to, since it does all 3 of these. They should have just picked a lane and stayed there. Everyone in the Corps can still be giving Hal the stink eye because Abin Sur was a legend among them, and they don't think that anyone can replace him. But Sinestro should be the one guy telling G-Nort to back off because Hal is alright. He sees something similar in Hal to Abin Sur. In some ways, Sinestro should be kind of like what we are told Obi-Wan Kenobi was in The Phantom Menace. He's young, some people think maybe too young to be taking on an apprentice of his own, but the Guardians are forced to pair Hal and Sinestro up because Sinestro worked the closest with Abin Sur, and Abin Sur was the most familiar with Despotolus. And since the Guardians are getting some hints that Despotolus might have escaped instead of dying, and he might even be active in Sector 2814, they send Hal and Sinestro to track down Despotolus and save the day. This would need to be in the middle of the movie instead of Hal going through his self-doubt and doing very little superheroing on Earth during the second act. And Sinestro will get injured somehow, forcing Hal to take on Hammond alone. This will also give Sinestro the idea that the green rings aren't enough, so they need something stronger. Combining all three of the Mentor Lanterns into Sinestro allows us to come to care about Sinestro, which we really should, I think. In the comics, he's introduced as already a bad guy, and then we get his backstory after the fact. But I would be much more interested in seeing him start out as a hero and fall from grace once we get to know him. This would mean we also need to spend more time with him in this movie than what we did. It is a crime that we got Mark Strong, who would have done a killer performance as a fallen hero turned extremist anti-hero, and then they only gave him like 2 scenes in this movie. There are some other minor things that I wasn't a fan of in this movie that I don't think deserve that much screen time in this video. I don't really care about Hal Jordan's family, and I don't think this movie does either, which makes it all the more strange that they are thrown into literally 1 scene in this movie. I guess Blake Lively and Ryan Reynolds have chemistry since they got married and had 3 kids, but I wish their characters had more time with each other in this movie. It almost feels like the movie is telling us they care about each other, and we just have to buy it. I know the actors care about each other, but I am not quite buying it with the characters. I've heard about some deleted scenes I have never seen showing more interactions with Hector, Hal, and Carol, which would have been nice since Hector already feels like a bad guy by the time he is talking to Hal at the party. If we see that all 3 of these guys are buddies, and it's Despotilus corrupting a more or less okay dude, that could raise the stakes a little bit in the final fight, before Hal eventually has to take Hammond to Takron Galtos, a prison planet from the Legion of Superheroes comic. Some more small world building that could tie into future DC movies in a connected universe, hoping that some space scientists can find a way to separate Despotilus from Hector. Movie 2, we get Parallax, who is the greatest threat the universe has seen in a zillion years. You can even still do the thing where he is a former Guardian who was corrupted by a fear weapon that he was studying. After we had an entire movie to get to know Hal and Sinestro, here we will get to see some of the other core members. The ones I would really want to see are Kilowog and Mogo. You could even have Aya in a cameo role as a computer voice, but not playing a huge role in the movie. Anyway, if the first movie is a rookie cop being shown the ropes by a slightly less rookie cop, then this one is a big sprawling epic space war movie. Hundreds of Lanterns being summoned to deal with this threat, and since these guys mostly stay in their own sectors, when they all come together it will feel like a really big deal. Sinestro will still be an ally to the Corps and the Guardians in this one, but it will be a really close call in defeating Parallax. Maybe several of Sinestro's friends that he's known for a while will die, and once again, he is thinking about how what they are doing is not working very well. This was too close. The entire universe could have been destroyed. So then you take the ending of the movie that we got, where he puts on the evil ring, and he does that at the end of movie 2. And I would have him get the ring from the Weaponers instead of the Guardians. You could even say the Weaponers invented the ring that corrupted the being who became Parallax. I'm not a fan of the Guardians being the origin of Sinestro's ring, especially if we are setting him up to have his own core later on, which I am certain they would have done if we had gotten a sequel. Seems the Guardians would just be able to turn the ring off if they were the ones who created it. The theatrical movie wasn't the full edit that Martin Campbell envisioned, which here lately, it seems like every superhero movie on the planet has the theatrical cut and the air quotes real director's cut. I haven't seen the extended cut, I only have the theatrical cut, so maybe some of my questions would be answered if I saw the extended edition. But I am still perplexed why Sinestro puts on the ring at the end of the movie that we got. The only reason he and the Guardians made the yellow fear ring was to defeat Parallax, who is destroyed in the movie. Hal proves that green wins, yellow is unnecessary. So why does he do it? I don't know. But if you get 2 full movies where Sinestro gets his butt handed to him and watches a world or the universe almost get destroyed, then that would be a good reason for him to put the ring on. Movie 3, you guessed it, the Sinestro Corps War. Beginning of the movie, Sinestro has gone missing. Hal is sent to investigate. By this point, Hal has defeated Hammond by himself and did something amazing in the battle against Parallax that has earned him some major brownie points with the Guardians, so he is promoted to dealing with stuff all over the place, and so a new Earthman will be given the duty of protecting Sector 2814. We won't see him, but it can be whoever you want. Guy, John, Kyle, it doesn't matter. During the course of Hal's investigation, he can team up with one of the Lanterns we got to meet in the previous movie, Boudica, who is an Alpha Lantern, which is basically internal affairs for the Green Lanterns. Hal thinks that something is fishy, but Boudica isn't sure that there's anything to investigate. What is making Hal's spidey sense tingle is that intergalactic crime is pretty low, which, even in his rookie experience, is really strange. They go to Takron Galtos, and they find that they haven't been getting as many criminals checked in by several Green Lanterns. They get a list, and it's quite a few Lanterns who haven't been by in months. They do some investigating. Hal sees that all of these guys have been missing for as long as Sinestro, and Hal only noticed Sinestro's absence because of their partnership. Eventually, we will find out that Sinestro has sweet-talked these other missing Lanterns into forming a new corps where they deal with crime lords and space monsters in a much more permanent fashion. You can get a twist that Boudica is actually in league with Sinestro. I don't think Boudica is a bad guy in the comics, but she was Sinestro's ally in the animated movie Green Lantern First Flight, so I am going with that interpretation of her here. She has been intercepting all of Hal's transmissions to Oa, so they won't be sending reinforcements. Sinestro wanted Boudica to guide Hal here because he believes Hal could help them rid the universe of all evil and keep it that way. Why didn't he just recruit Hal when he first started? I don't know. Maybe at first he wanted to keep Hal away from the dirtier side of protecting the universe until Hal Hal resolutely continued his investigation, so Sinestro figured that Hal could be a valuable ally. Sinestro will have a speech about how many times he's helped save the day, how many times Abin Sur did it, and his mentor before him, and yet crime has continued. Sinestro wants to put a permanent stop to it. Hal will say, no, this is premeditated murder, I won't be a part of it. Sinestro's goons will attack Hal, and maybe Sinestro can even be like, no, don't, he's my friend, don't kill him. But they don't listen because he will report back to the Guardians if they let him go. Then you can get Kilowog, Tomar Ray, Kat Matui, Aya, Mogo, all of the fan favorites, they all come in to save the day. Boudica is confused, and Hal says he caught on to what Boudica was doing when they were on Takron Galtos, so he sent transmissions to the Guardians that she was looking for, but he also sent very secret transmissions to all of his friends that she didn't think to stop. Does this make any sense? No, but I like Hal being clever, so we'll keep this here. Get your big space war, but this one feels like a punch in the gut because we like this guy, we don't want to see him do this, but his reasons feel real and earned and don't come completely out of nowhere. Somehow, the Sinestro guys will get away and they will go to Takron Galtos and kill all of the criminals. This one won't have quite the satisfying happy ending the first two had. Sinestro and his new corps are still out there, and now the Guardians are considering doubling up on lanterns in each sector, doing some promotions from within to boost the ranks of the Honor Guard, all to be ready for Sinestro and his antics in the future. Importantly, Sinestro does not consider lanterns as evil, so he won't be coming after them, but he knows that they will be crossing paths as he goes to exterminate evil in the future. So if you wanted to do even more movies, you could eventually have Hal training the Earth Lanterns who replaced him, and Sinestro will still be an antagonist, but if you want to bring in other big universe-ending threats like the Anti-Monitor or Imperiex, Sinestro and his friends will assist the Green Lanterns in defeating those guys, sort of like Magneto teaming up with the X-Men in X2 while still maintaining his views on how to do things. With how much shade I've thrown the Green Lantern comics and this movie over the years, I expected this video to be longer, but like I said, it's not bad, just disappointing when you think you could have spaced, no pun intended, some of this out over several movies. I'm even angrier at this movie now for not doing that. But yeah, that's my fix for this movie. I hope you guys liked it, and if you did, I'll be doing another fix video next week, something a little different than what I usually do. And if you did like this one, be sure to say the oath and share this video with your fellow corpsmen, and also slam that like button. In the meantime, I'll be back later with some other videos, so you guys have a great rest of the day. Catch you later.